everyone, and welcome to the Popcorn Bucket List, the podcast that keeps your movie bucket list up to date because those 1,000 movies to see before you die lists are just too daunting. I'm your host and broker, Gracie, and with me is Gerald, recent convert to the Church of George Romero, and Nexus 7 model replicant, Sarah. How are you guys doing today?
Doing
Great.
good. Yeah. Today we're going to be talking about movie sequels, specifically our favorite sequels. Because when a movie takes off at the box office, the first question is there going to be a sequel? That's what it's all about. It's like, is this a franchise-worthy property? And most of them are kind of cash grabs for the industry. So a lot of times it's special when like a sequel turns out to actually be really good. So today we're talking about our favorite sequels, but it's a little hard to distinguish between what is our favorite personal movie sequels, like we just happen to like them the most, versus like what are like sequels that are genuinely great and are sometimes better than like the original movie. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So I guess kind of the first, general question is like why do we expect movie sequels to be bad? That seems to be the general thought is that, oh, cool, that movie was good. The next one's going to be terrible. So why is that? I'll start with Grace.
Um, I don't know. I think there's this like stigma that like movies just progressively get worse because they're not original. I'm not really sure why that we expect, like, I don't know where the stigma came from. Was there a specific series? I'm not really sure. I'd love to do more research about it, which tells you a lot that, I did a lot of research for this one. But like, I mean, if you ask anybody, everybody's gonna go, oh, the sequel's gonna suck. But like, even if like the second one sucks, the third one was good. Like you could look at certain series, like, and
Mhm.
we don't even have this on the slot to talk about, but like Toy Story. Toy Story 1 is phenomenal. Not a lot of people like Toy Story 2, but Toy Story 3, everybody loved. And I liked Toy Story 4. Like I thought 4 was fun. Um, but like, I mean, I like Toy Story 2, but I know that tends to be everybody's least favorite. And I'm not really sure where, like, maybe it's because sequels tend to be the end of a series. That's as far as they get. But I'm trying to think of like failed series that, you know, like I could think of like holiday movies and like horror
Mhm.
films. Horror films tend to be, in my opinion, where a lot of sequels suck. But I think you get some gems after a couple, fail. Like the series that we talked about, like Saw 6 was really good, but Saw 3 through 5 was awful, like that kind of thing. Or Halloween, like I like Halloween 1 and 2. Some people don't like 3, the season of the witch. But I mean, it's apparently, I just read this fact, Halloween wasn't even supposed to be about him, Michael Myers. He wasn't supposed to be the main like villain. It was
Really?
supposed to be, the original thought behind the series was that it was films taking place on Halloween.
Oh,
So
okay.
it would have been
That makes more
different, like
sense.
stories taking place on Halloween. So the original makes a lot more sense
Hmm.
now in my mind. And then they just said, oh, we want to continue on with the second one, which I think, and then they kind of just went from there. I guess Michael Myers became like, your icon, and then they kind of ran with it. So I don't know. I think that's kind of where, in my opinion, horror movies are probably where it comes from. The
Hmm.
idea that sequels suck because like, I mean, I've watched, like, I liked Secret Life of Pets too. Like I had just as much fun watching the second one as I did as the first one. And so I think that the stigma is we don't give it a chance, maybe because we've been let down before. I'm not sure. But nowadays I'm just craving all sorts of media, so I don't really care. What do you think, Sarah?
I think you almost touched on it. And I feel like the reason why people expect sequels to be bad is because a lot of sequels come from movies that weren't written to have a sequel in mind. Like, of course, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is going to be great because that's already planned. you know. But when you make a movie and it ends in like a nice bow, and then someone's like, yeah, but what if we made more money off of this? And you open that box back up, sometimes it really doesn't need to be opened back up. And that's where I feel like people think sequels can be bad, is like, no, that was good. We don't need to do that again.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense. I'm trying to think of like a movie that they went, oh, here's a sequel. Because like I feel like sequels are very different than remakes. Like you have to distinguish
Yeah.
the difference. Because like in my opinion, I would say a sequel I didn't need was Mary Poppins 2. Didn't need that. I was perfectly happy with how perfect and like nice and tied up in a bow that first movie is. But I didn't hate the second one. I just didn't
Yeah.
need it. It wasn't like I needed it, and I feel like that almost was its own like rebrand of Mary Poppins in its own way. I felt like it wasn't necessarily a sequel because it was way different. But I don't know. It's an interesting stigma that we've all pretty much like all film goers, even just like nonchalant film goers, tend to say, oh, the sequel's gonna suck, even if they leave it open for a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it is weird because whenever I go see a movie, I'm always expecting, no matter what it is, like this, someone wants to do a sequel to this. I don't care what it is. Somebody probably is thinking like, how can we capitalize on this and make like another one? Like, how do we make Sicario 2, which was a stupid idea because Sicario is a great movie and it's exactly the way it needs to. There's no reason to ever do another one, and they did it. And I think the reason why a lot of people assume sequels are going to suck is because for a long time they kind of did. They just existed just for the sake of existing. I think it wasn't until like, I don't know, like maybe movies like Empire Strikes Back or like the subsequent Indiana Jones films
Hmm.
that we started getting kind of territory where like, oh wow, the sequel's actually better than the original. For a long time there weren't really like for a long time there weren't a lot of sequels. I remember looking this up once before because I was curious, like, where do sequels come from?
I just
And I,
found the first sequel.
oh, what is it?
I wanted to know what it was because I think you said something. So it is the sequel to The Birth of a Nation.
Huh.
Was this the Fall of a Nation is the
Oh,
sequel.
good, good.
So
Yes, of course.
I think that's an interesting like concept.
That's
like,
why they suck. That's why.
so basically it says the plot for I don't want to have to go into The Birth of a Nation. um Daryl, do you want to attack that one? Basically
I don't know the plot of Birth of a Nation other than it's very, very racist. It's like the most racist movie to exist.
Yeah, it's
so.
like The Birth of a Nation was used as propaganda for the KKK, basically. Like they used it as like a recruiting tool. But the Fall of the Nation was America is unprepared for an attack by the European Confederated Army, a European army headed by Germany. The army invades America and executes children and war veterans. However, America is saved by a pro-war congressman who raises an army to defeat the invaders with the support of a suffragette.
Cool.
So it's considered pro-war propaganda. But
nice.
That's considered the first sequel in cinema history, which
we're off to a great start here.
Yeah, I kind of want to know like where. So apparently, there's like also something that's called like the Son of the Sheik or something like that, which might have been a sequel to a movie called The Sheik. So there's debate apparently between the two. So up on the scan of this article.
Comedies are another one too that I feel like get terrible, terrible sequels.
Yeah.
Like Deuce Bigelow, European Gigolo, Little Fockers, Grown Ups 2. Like those didn't need to exist. And
I don't knock on Grown Ups 2 though.
I was gonna say I like Grown Ups 2.
Okay.
I love Grown Ups 2.
I love these awful movies. How dare you?
Oh my God. I love Grown Ups. I think that's the stupidest movies ever, but they're like some of the most fun. Oh, Jumanji had a really good sequel. Jumanji, what is it? Not Welcome to the Next Level.
Yeah, the next
That one was
level.
pretty good.
Which is
So
weird
Yeah.
because it didn't need a remake and it didn't need a sequel, and yet it
no,
worked.
it
All of it
worked.
worked.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think they're doing a third one, which will be interesting to see if it holds up. I'm not sure if it made it through the quarantine slot though. Like, a lot of movies aren't getting sequels now because of they didn't make enough money because of
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
a
know.
little unfair, but okay.
Yeah, I know. But also then we don't have to get a tenant too.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a Tenet 2?
Oh God.
No, I don't
Please
want
don't.
to.
But that's I don't know. It's interesting how that happens. It's just like we immediately think sequel bad, and it's because a lot of them were for a long time. We got a lot of good ones recently though, and just like the past 30 years have been getting a lot of good sequels, except in like comedy specifically. Comedy seems to always breed bad movies, unless it's like
Yeah.
Jumanji.
Or like, like dance movies. Like every single dance movie has
Oh
about
yeah.
7 of them. Like Step
Step
Up to the
Up.
Streets, Step Up
Yeah.
3D. Like it just
Even
keeps
Saturday Night
going
Like
and
Fever got
going.
a sequel.
yeah, or Fast and Furious 1,
Yeah.
2, Too Fast, Too
Action
Furious.
movies.
Tokyo
Yeah.
Drift which is like a side one, and then you get Fast and Furious 3, which I can't remember the name of it, and then oh, I
Yeah.
can't. I
It's
can't.
just it's too many. It's too many sequels. But I mean, I think that's the point. It's like we're trying to make too many sequels so you come and spend your money.
Mm.
Everything Michael Bay does. Let's make
Yeah.
7 Transformer movies.
Yes, and every single one is bad except for Bumblebee. I liked Bumblebee. That
I
was
liked
actually a
Bumblebee
decent
as well.
movie.
Bumblebee
Yeah.
was
That
all
was
right.
I feel like it wasn't a sequel, it was a standalone film
It
in its own
wasn't a
Yeah.
way.
great movie, but it was like it was
It
at
was the
least
best one
It
out
was a
of all of
movie.
them.
it was on par with the original
Yeah.
Transformers
Yeah,
movie, which
it at
was
least made
decent.
sense.
Yes. There were no dinosaurs or King Arthur.
Yeah.
I forgot about the King Arthur thing.
Yeah, I think that's the
That
one
was the
I
worst
missed.
one.
Oh
Which
God.
is saying a lot.
Yeah.
Because Revenge of the Fallen exists, and that one was like actively racist too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah,
Oh
Yeah.
no.
yeah.
I think that it's just there's a lot of misses, and which is what gives it some negatives. I
Mm.
think that there are some perfect examples of sequels where they end up being prequels. Like I thought Monsters Inc.'s
Monster
prequel
University.
Monsters University was
Yeah.
great. I thought that
It
was a great
was.
add-on to the universe. Uh,
Mm.
and I think that's the thing is what makes it is if the story's left open for more, because like you could have argued that Toy Story was perfect on its own. It didn't need a sequel, but they added on to the world. And I like that that's how it felt. And I think that's probably why I picked the movies I picked for my favorite sequels, is that I felt like I wanted to know more about this world or the lore or whatever, and I got that out of the sequels. And I think that's what makes a good sequel, is that
Yeah.
it like
Yeah.
doesn't, feel like it's trying to outdo the first one. I guess that's,
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like my honorable mention is similar to that. I'm not gonna go deep into it, but Pirates of the Caribbean 2, Dead Man's Chest is amazing.
I was
Um,
literally just thinking about that movie.
and I really didn't need a sequel, much less 4 sequels, but the second one is fantastic.
I think the trilogy is like that perfect, like it ended perfectly of the trilogy. It didn't
Mhm.
need a trilogy,
No.
but it worked, and then they should have stopped.
Yeah.
I think it
But
was
there's gonna be more.
I know. So
Franchise potential here.
And this is why we're rolling our eyes at sequels, because it's like, okay, more pirates, great. And it's like more pirates, more pirates. Okay,
like why couldn't
okay.
we have like I think it's because they try and keep going with Jack Sparrow. Like I would have loved to have Orlando Bloom as Davy Jones, Like that would have been cool. Like as him being the, guy. Like that would
Yeah.
have been cool. Like the captain
Yeah,
of the
but that
Flying
movie's
Dutchman.
probably just he does a great job the end. Because
Yeah,
he's
but
not
Yeah,
gonna
like,
mess it up.
probably.
but it would be cool to see that him, because you don't really get to see him develop as that character. So that would be cool to be like, oh, I'm the captain of the Flying Dutchman kind of thing. I don't know. I think that there are misses because there are ones that were just like, did we really need another Fast and Furious movie? But like, I don't go see Fast and Furious movies for the plot. I go see Fast and Furious movies to watch cars explode. Like I want to see them pull a giant tanker across an iceberg or whatever and try and escape a bomb. I don't know. I can't remember that scene, but that's a pretty sure scene with The Rock. I'm not sure.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. But maybe that's why I think like Halloween works. Nightmare on Elm Street works. I think because they're meant to be kind of silly. Maybe that's why, is that they're cheesy. I don't know. The stigma is an interesting one to think about, because now, in my opinion, that stigma has to come from horror films. Like,
Yeah, I guess.
Comedies, maybe, I don't know. But then I'm trying to think of like blockbuster comedies that had sequels. I don't know. I bet you named them, I guess. So
Yeah, a few.
I mean, and that kind of leads into like the second question is like, are sequels given a pass on good filmmaking? Because you do have so many sequels that are not very good, but also people don't expect them to be good. And so people are kind of like, they're okay with that. But then at the same time, some movies end up being much better. And then we're always surprised when they are because
Yeah.
because we have this expectancy that they're just not going to be good. So yeah, like, what do y'all think about that?
interesting. I mean, like, I think it's a interesting. Maybe it's how I feel about all movies now. Is that I like go in with like super low expectations so that I can enjoy it. I don't. I feel like I'm. I was burned before. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's how I feel about it. Like if I go into it with too much, excitement, then I'm gonna be let down because it's not gonna go the way I want it. But like, I know that sounds super pretentious, but I mean, like sequels, I think I've just always gone into it going, this is probably not gonna be good because it's never gonna be as good as the first one. But then you get some that are better than the first one, and that's a good feeling leaving like a theater and going, wow, that was really good as the first one, or as I'm just now thinking like the Jaws series, but I'm gonna still watch Shark. Sorry for our audio listeners. I just made a really like weird face. Like it didn't need to be done. There didn't need to be more Jaws movies. But also I'm gonna watch them if I want to watch a shark film. Like if I want to watch a shark eat people in an aquarium, that's where I'm gonna go.
Yeah. And I guess like with some movies like that or like a Fast and Furious, it's like, as you said, it doesn't matter what the story is. There's a specific vibe that you're looking for, and it's like, yeah, I'll just take that. Give it to me. I don't care. Just give it to me. I don't care about the details.
Yeah, I guess it's almost like the Star Wars films, like with the new ones that we're getting, like as much as like we don't like them, it's still Star Wars content that I'm getting, and
Yeah.
I'm coming to see a lightsaber fight. So even though it makes no sense to the plot, I'm still excited by like, like that, Kylo Ren and Rey scene where they're fighting together, and then you're like, what is going on? And the Knights of Ren are dying, and you're like, oh my god. All I cared about was that was an epic scene. I didn't care about the fact that it made no sense to the plot, even though that one probably made the most sense to the plot. But
I think
I
like
digress.
that is kind of what happens too, is like these sequels, like the movie does well, and then they're like, oh, let's make another one with more money. And instead of like spending that to like go towards writing a great script and getting great like crew and like making or getting great actors, they're like, what if we just make it really pretty or spend it on explosions.
Yeah.
And it's like we'll just bring in the crowd that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just add some superficial stuff and that's good.
Well, and it's also like there are series that like, would you consider James Bond movie sequels?
In
Like,
yes
because
and
like
Yeah.
no.
I would say Daniel Craig's,
Oh,
yes.
definitely those are all
But
sequels.
like Sean Connery's, I feel like all stand alone.
Yeah, they're
Or
like
like I
barely
would like if
related.
you go back, like they are all standalone films almost. You
Hmm.
don't really need to have seen any of the other ones. I'm pretty sure I've seen most of the James Bond series out of order anyway. So like, do those count as sequels? Because like I wouldn't go, oh yeah, Goldfinger's the sequel to,
Hmm.
Casino, or not Casino Royale, but
Whatever came before
whatever
it,
came before
which we
it.
don't know because it doesn't
Uh
matter.
Man with Golden.
I feel it's like For Your Eyes Only or something that came
Yeah,
before.
I don't know.
There are 26 of
My,
these movies. So.
I can just feel
I
my
can name all the
father
Austin
shaking
Powers
his.
movies.
Yeah,
There
I
you
could just.
go.
There's an example. But yeah, I can feel my father just so disappointed in me not being able to name something before Goldfinger. His Majesty's
Dr.
Secret
No.
Service and
That came
Doctor
before
No.
Goldfinger?
Yeah, yeah.
Did it? I thought it came after. Well, wait.
No,
See that
Doctor No is first.
Dr. No was first,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, so
I
you
thought
were
Her
right.
Majesty's Secret Service was George Lazenby, so I
Is
thought that
that
was
George
late.
Lazenby?
Yeah, that's late in
Yeah,
the
so
game.
that's
That's
later in the
after Roger
game.
Moore
That's
and Sean
after.
Connery.
I'm a failure to the James Bond universe. I love James Bond. Like that's like another one. Like if I'm gonna say like out of like that type of series where I'm like I'm gonna watch something because I want to watch things explode, that's probably the series I would go for.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
I feel like
same.
you can get all that out of different movies. Like you could watch, Sean
Jason Bourne,
Connery and
John Wick.
Jason Mission
Yeah,
Impossible. Like like
yeah.
there's all sorts of different ones that I think are work, and then there are ones that we just expect not to work.
Hmm.
Especially like, I mean, even if you go to the James Bond ones, like, oh my God, Quantum Solace, like was
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, I mean, like a third of them aren't good movies. And the other, like, two-thirds are fine. And then there's, like, six that are, like, amazing.
Yeah. So I think it's just like especially when you're like the Halloween series or Nightmare on Elm Street, you make 8 of them,
Hmm.
2 are at least going to be good. So you're going to strike gold at some point,
Something might work.
maybe, I don't know. And that's, I think, where you get like the gems.
Yeah. And then there's some like Disney movies we can't even talk about that they just made like because they knew they would make a little bit of money on it from the kids, but they go straight to VHS. Like
Mm.
Atlantis 2. Oh my God. Never put that on.
Oh
It looks
yeah, I
like it
forgot
was
that they even
made for
exist.
like Disney Channel. Like it's
It
the
was though,
worst
literally
movie.
made for Disney Channel, like just released as a movie. It's fine.
Oh,
It's
it is
fine.
so bad.
Oh my, or like Pocahontas too.
Little Mermaid
Like
2.
Little Mermaid. No, no,
Cinderella
no, no.
2.
Little Mermaid 2 is good. It was Little
Jungle
Mermaid
Book
3.
2.
Jungle Book 2 is a little bit of
Bambi
a mess.
2.
Oh, poor Bambi. Oh, my heart.
Oh,
I think
Return of Jafar.
so for those who are listening to us, like super out of like Corella just came out this weekend, and like it's had like all sorts of different reviews. But I saw something on Twitter that was like, we need one for Bambi's hunter, the one that kills Bambi's mom. We need to know why Deer killed his mom. And I was like, oh my God.
I would absolutely watch that though. It's on a crusade to kill all deer after this.
Yeah. So, I mean, he could just live in Louisiana and we would be, that's normal.
Yeah, just killing for the
Sportsman's
sake of
paradise.
killing.
But yeah, I think sometimes it's a cash grab. I mean, a lot of the times it's a cash grab, and that's probably why is that it feels like a cash grab
Mhm.
sometimes. So, I don't know. I think I'm definitely interested to hear you guys' like what your favorite sequels are, because I think it'll be interesting conversation. So, do you want to get into that?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
All right, who wants to go first? Reveal your secrets.
Tell us.
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm gonna start with Hellboy 2.
Okay.
Excellent.
And Hellboy.
Good. A movie I haven't
So,
seen.
oh, you haven't seen Hellboy?
No.
You've never seen Hellboy?
No.
Wow,
Oh
you're
my
missing
God.
out. You're
You are
missing
missing
Yeah.
out.
out.
I know.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, for anyone who doesn't know, Hellboy from 2004, directed by
Such as
Guillermo del
Grace.
Toro, is at the end of World War II, Nazis attempt to open a portal to a paranormal dimension in order to defeat the Allies, but they're only able to summon a baby demon who's rescued by the Allied forces and dubbed Hellboy. He's played by Ron Perlman when he grows up. And 60 years later, he serves as an agent in the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense. And he's got some really cool friends that are also in the Bureau that help him out. And this was actually supposed to be a trilogy. Number 3 never happened.
Oh, that hurts my heart.
It really
they just
it hurts
remade
my
it,
heart
didn't
a
they?
lot too.
They
Yeah,
just
and
remade
it's
it.
Yeah,
we
an
don't
awful
talk
remake.
about that
Okay.
one.
That's
Yeah,
sad.
never.
Yeah, apparently the second one came out at the same time as another really big movie. I don't remember what it was. Oh, The Dark Knight. It came out the
Oh,
same week as The Dark Knight, so it didn't do as well as it was
yeah.
supposed to. Um,
That's
yeah,
sad. Why did they
Yeah.
do that? Like, who made that decision?
I don't know.
People who didn't have faith in the movie, which is Lionsgate
Interesting.
probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I really love Hellboy 2. And the second one is The Golden Army from 2008. It brings back a lot of the same cast, and everyone in it is amazing. Doug Jones plays Abe Sapien, and
Love Doug Jones. He's great.
yeah, he's amazing. He's in like pretty
He's the
much
best
every
fish man.
yes, he's in like all the Guillermo del Toro movies. He's
Every
the
scary movie you've ever seen.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
He was even in Hocus Pocus. He's
Mhm.
the zombie.
Yeah, he's
Oh, I
Billy.
didn't even know that.
Yeah, he's Billy.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
witch. I love when he does that. That's like the best line in the whole movie when he finally takes off his stitches and he's like, "You witch." I don't know why.
So something fun about the second, I guess first and second Hellboy is that Doug Jones did the character for Abe Sapien, so he was in the suit and everything. But for the first Hellboy, Abe Sapien's voice was done by David Hyde Pierce, who is Niles in
Oh.
Frasier.
Interesting.
It's just
But
wonderful.
yeah, it is. It's amazing. But he's not credited in the movie at all, and he didn't even go to like opening night. Like he wanted nothing to
Really?
do with it because he said that Doug Jones like made that character and he didn't want to take any credit away
Oh.
from him. Like he was like this was him. And basically they like, he had to do his lines and everything because they already like shot all of the stuff. And but yeah, he didn't come back for 2, and so Doug Jones does the voice in 2. So you can tell it's different, especially if you
Mhm.
watch them back to back. But that's why is because David Hyde Pierce just thought that Doug Jones should have the credit for him. Which is funny because they got David Hyde Pierce to like try to bring people to see it because they're like, hey, that guy from Frasier that
Yeah.
everybody loves. And then he was like,
That show that's popular.
don't tell anyone
Yeah.
I was in it.
I have mad respect for David Hyde Pierce now. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. I didn't know
Yeah.
that second part of the fact. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Good on you, man. Good on you.
Yeah. But yeah, Guillermo del Toro wanted these movies to happen like so bad. Like these were like his babies. Him and the author of the Hellboy comics were really tight, Mike Mignola.
Yeah.
They were really tight, and they also both like wanted Ron Perlman as Hellboy. Like that was their first pick, and obviously he's perfect. But yeah, Guillermo del Toro turned down so many movies to make Hellboy and Hellboy 2. Like he was asked to direct Halo, like with Peter Jackson asked him to direct Halo. He said no. He was asked to direct Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban and Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, and he said no. He turned down I Am Legend.
I'm thinking Del Toro for I Am Legend. That would have been so cool.
That would have been
That would have
awesome.
been
It would have been a
kinda
good movie.
crazy.
Yeah.
But
Or the sixth one, because the sixth Harry Potter is terrible. So it would have been so much better of a movie. Damn it.
Man, I'm fine you didn't direct Prisoner of Azkaban
I
though,
kinda
'cause
love
it was
six.
perfect.
Alfonso,
Prisoner was
yeah,
perfect.
yeah. Cuarón is the only person I ever want to direct a Harry Potter movie ever.
But yeah, so the second Hellboy is about a prince that is trying to bring the underworld to us, and he's trying to awaken an ancient army to do that. And so it follows his twin sister, who is like the princess of this. And she's got like a little romance thing with Abe Sapien. It's really cute. But it's just so much fun. Like I love these kinds of movies. Like it's like crazy, supernatural, action packed, and like Ron Perlman just makes it so amazing. And I think like the production of it is just gorgeous. Like everything Guillermo del Toro does, like the creatures and like I don't think anyone could have done this justice, like done Hellboy justice, like Guillermo del Toro did. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. We've got some Seth MacFarlane makes an appearance as Johann Kraus, which is just a great character, super fun. And Doug Jones gets a couple of extra characters in that. He does the Angel of Death and the Chamberlain, which are just like crazy makeups. Like they're just absolutely insane. And like I know Doug Jones did like each line for the Angel of Death's voice twice on like a high pitch and a low pitch, and they like put them together so that it would sound
awesome.
really creepy. Yeah. But yeah, it's so good. And it's kind of weird the way that it ends, like with a big like spoiler alert. It's like Liz is pregnant and like that's Hellboy's girlfriend, and it's like, oh, we're gonna see like whatever this is coming up next, and it's like no. Like there was a hashtag on Twitter like trying to get it to happen, and like they actually had like someone signed like a petition, like there was like however many people signed a petition, and everybody met together, like Mike Mignola and Guillermo del Toro and Ron Perlman all got together in a meeting, and they were like, this isn't happening. Like is a very unfortunate, and even more unfortunately what came from it was that Hellboy remake.
It's so disheartening because I love David Harbour. So
yeah, he was a good pick.
Yeah, he was good. He was the only like decent part of the movie. Everything else is bad.
Oh, okay. Okay, well then I don't feel so bad.
Yeah, he was all right. He actually kind of knew what he was doing. It's just a bad movie. You know?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I guess I picked this because I feel like not only does it hold up to the first Hellboy movie, but I feel like it adds a lot to the story, and like it's such a fun, like it had so much potential, because not only are there like a million comics and a million different creatures and things that you could like add on to this, but like it kind of fits in that thing where it's just like, since you're following like the Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, like you can just like do anything with that, and you could like make 10 movies if you wanted to. So the fact that like the story didn't get to wrap up is kind of sad, but I still think the Golden Army really, really holds up, and is a great sequel to a great movie.
Yep.
Well, do you want to go into what's your other one, or do we want to take a turn?
Let's bounce back and forth. I think I talked enough.
Okay, okay.
For now.
Daryl, do you want to go next, or you want me to go next?
I'll go next.
Okay.
Let's see. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Terminator, because I love Terminator 1 and I love Terminator 2 even more. Pretty much everybody agrees with that statement also anyway. So it's funny. It's kind of an easy one to pick because everybody knows that
That's
Terminator
what
2 is
my
the better
dad picked.
film. Yeah,
I
it's like
just got a
everybody
text
does that.
message. He's like, "Are you talking about Terminator 2?"
It's like, yes, we
Yes,
are.
yes.
Now we shall talk about Terminator 2. Um, but yeah, so just to give you the rundown on the first Terminator in case for some reason you haven't seen it or heard of it. This is a movie directed by James Cameron from 1984. It's about a human soldier is sent from 2029 to 1984 to stop an almost indestructible cyborg killing machine sent from the same year, which has been programmed to execute a young woman whose unborn son is the key to humanity's future salvation. So,
Thank you for
ev-
using your movie voice for that.
thank
I
you.
love it.
Yes, I mean I'm reading off of IMDb, so of course I have to use my movie voice. But yeah, so it's of course Arnold Schwarzenegger plays the titular Terminator. Linda Hamilton plays Sarah Connor. Michael Biehn plays Kyle Reese.
That's it. I
There you
couldn't
go.
remember.
Oh, you're trying to remember
I was
Michael
trying to.
Bihn's name?
Yeah,
Well, it's fun because he's in another movie that I'm pretty sure is on our list at some point.
that's why I was like trying to remember his name.
But yeah, it's like Terminator 1 is awesome because it's like it's made by this guy who at the time he was like James Cameron was like a truck driver for a while before he actually made it into the film industry. Basically he had a nightmare about like a robot from the future coming to kill somebody, and he was like, what if that was a movie? And so he gave us like two of the greatest science fiction films of all time. And while the first one is great and has like some pioneering special effects, it's all stop motion, and if you watch it nowadays it looks a little hilarious at times. It's a great story. It balances like the action and the love story really really well, but it looks a little bit goofy, just a little bit, just because it's like they didn't have a whole lot of money to make this movie. um
I
but the
loved it.
second one,
It was the
I mean,
first one.
it's great. Yeah,
No, I just seen it for the first time. Me and you watched it for the
that's right.
first
We
time.
did. We
Remember?
watched like a couple months ago.
Yeah, I had seen the second one, but I had never seen the first one. Yeah. So I had fun. I loved it. So
As you should, as everyone should love the first two Terminator movies. The less said about the sequels, the better.
yeah.
Um, but so the second one, the reason why I think it's an awesome sequel is that it just kicks up everything like up to 11. So the sequel came out in 1991, also directed by James Cameron, and this one is about a cyborg identical to the one who failed to kill Sarah Connor must now protect her 10-year-old son, John Connor, from a more advanced and powerful cyborg. So basically, the gist of this movie is that the T-100, the Terminator from the first film, Arnold Schwarzenegger, is now the good guy, which was like the biggest twist back in like 1991. People were freaking out that like the bad guy, like the baddest bad guy, is now protecting this little boy. And then now the villain is a T-1000, who is this like liquid Terminator. So of course, like he can like transform into other people. He can create like knives out of his hands and stuff. You can't see what I just did if you're listening, but I just did like a knife motion with my hands. So you should watch the video version of this if you want to see me stab
Who's
in the
the
sky.
who's the T-1000? I can't remember.
The T-1000 is what's his name? Patrick.
Robert Patrick.
Robert Patrick. That's
That's
it.
it.
Yeah, and
He's
he
the guy
does.
that looks great as a bad guy.
He does, especially with those like little like prominent ears he has.
Yeah.
He does an excellent job playing this guy because he's so menacing. He's like you have Arnold Schwarzenegger is like the coolest of the cool, like the coolest of the 90s style of cool, and then like the most like terrifying bad guy who is just Robert Patrick walking around staring at people, stabbing people in the head while they're drinking out of a milk carton.
Yeah. So good.
But yeah, it's an amazing sequel for a lot of reasons, and one of them is just that Terminator is now like the good guy. It's like you take a concept from the first movie and you completely spin it on its head. And that's what I think makes movies great, is when they establish new rules for a universe but that still makes sense. So another like big thing about this movie is that like John Connor can control the Terminator in a sense. He has to listen. The Terminator has to listen to whatever he says, and one thing he says is, "I don't want you killing anybody." And so it's like, oh, that provides an interesting challenge for the filmmakers because now
Morality
they
almost.
have to have morality. You have to have our bad guy from the last movie be a good guy who's still like kicking ass but can't kill people. And so it has some of the best like non-lethal takedowns in cinema history, honestly. It is like super super impressive what they're able to do. Um and so I love that. I love that the T-800 also like he has to follow John Connor's commands. So everything that John says, he has to do it. Um, there's the fact that the T-1000 is like stronger and more advanced than the T-800. So it's not just like fighting the same dude. It's fighting someone who literally is like, generations better than the original. But you still have to make the main character look cool. And they do an
Yeah.
awesome job of that. Um, and they do a very good job of just explaining like how the T-1000 works, which is something that's really interesting because a lot of movies when they have new villains, it's just like here's a villain. They don't they don't get into detail that makes them make sense as villains. They just are
Mm-hmm.
villains, and it sucks a lot of the time. But in this one, it's very you understand immediately. Okay, this is the threat. We have to stop the T-1000 from killing John Connor, and he's like pretty much impossible to kill. How do we stop him? And also, spoiler alert for this one, they end up at the end of the movie at like a steel mill, where they show the two extremes of how to kill him, which is extreme cold because there's like a liquid nitrogen truck that they've been chased on, and it explodes and freezes the Terminator briefly. And also in a steel mill, there's like molten metal, and that's something that can kill him. And so it's just like this whole movie, you're like, how are they going to stop him? And then when you get to the end, you find two ways of killing him, and you're just like, okay, I think I see where this is going, but how do they get him into there? Like,
Yeah.
it's really, really impressive. It's a very, very fun movie. I love watching it. It's super exciting every single time. Um, it has like some of the best action, some of the most awesome and some of the most poignant deaths. My favorite death, like in a movie, probably is when Miles Dyson, the one black guy in this movie, he dies, but he has an awesome like hero's death, basically, where he has there's this thing where he has to like he has a bomb trigger in his hand, and he has to like, and it's like okay, he'll let go of this trigger and it'll explode. However, he gets shot before he's able to get away from the bomb, and so basically he's on the ground just holding on to the trigger, breathing like I don't know how long I can hold this, and then like he has like just the perfect like slow breathe, and then he drops the trigger and explodes, and it's a hero's death because like he's making amends for something that he didn't realize was going to like kill billions of people.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. It's a great moment for him, even though they do kill the black guy. A little upset about that. But still, it's great. It's an awesome moment. And just overall, it's just such a fun, interesting movie. They make Linda Hamilton a
A
badass
badass.
also. She's
Compared
literally
to the
just like,
first one
she's so
that she's
wimpy in the first movie.
yeah.
And the second one, it's like, oh my god, she can throw a table at people. Like,
Yeah,
look at her.
she's great.
Like even the way she moves, like she
Hmm.
moves like she's been trained. She moves like
She's
she's been
bulked
waiting
up.
for this
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Everything about this movie is great except for like John Connor's like voice changing throughout production because he like hit puberty during it. So his voice just it completely changes. So he had to redub a lot of his dialogue near the end of the movie. But other than that, it's awesome. It's pretty much perfect. Awesomely written. It looks amazing. Has like the contrast between the blues and the reds you see in this movie just are wonderful. In the steel mill scene, you get to see that in full force, basically, constantly being constantly contrasting the blue and the red, of the blue lights and the red molten metal. It's yeah, I could talk about this movie forever. I just love it so much. But yeah, y'all should see Terminator 2 if y'all haven't seen it. Just don't see any film after that ever if you can avoid it.
Ever.
Yeah, ever. Maybe Terminator 3 if you're so inclined.
Yeah,
It has a good ending. Terminator 3 has a
yeah.
great ending, but other than that, it's a terrible movie.
What was that new one?
Yeah, Dark
Terminator,
Fate.
Dark Fate. Yeah.
Yeah, it's if you have you seen Terminator 2, you've seen Dark Fate. It's literally like the same movie,
Yeah.
but bad. It's so annoying.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you're so I know what Sarah's next pick is gonna be, which is perfect because um James Cameron did Terminators. Well, James Cameron also did the sequel that I have picked, which I think is interesting. So I picked um the Alien sequel, Aliens with an S. um, Let me get my description just in case you haven't seen it. So Alien was released in 1979. It's about a space merchant vessel receives a unknown transmission as a distress call. One of the crew is attacked by a mysterious life form, and they soon realize that its life cycle has merely begun, and all hell breaks loose. And it's a perfect horror film, and I love it, and it's lives a special place in my heart. um, and then the sequel, which came out, so that was 1979. So the sequel came out 86. So 7 years later, right? Is that right? Yeah,
Yeah.
70 years later. Directed by James Cameron. Oh, and the first one was done by Ridley Scott, by the way. Yeah. The and that the sequel takes place 57 years after surviving an apocalyptic attack aboard her spaceship. And it basically follows Ripley's journey, who is the main character in the first one and the only surviving member of the first movie. Follows her after she's been found drifting in space while she's sleeping, 57 years later. And like she hasn't aged. And I think that's such an traumatic, like even just like that in general, which is only really like talked about like the first 10 minutes of the movie, like the fact that like everybody she knows is dead, and like she hasn't aged anything, and she's pretty much useless because everything's moved past her. Like, she was trained for her time and not the future, and I think that was an interesting, I don't know how I even like begin to talk about this. I'm so excited. It's one of those films that like everybody, when talking about sequels, they're always like, oh, Aliens. That's the sequel that even people say is better than the first one, which, is true in its own way. I think Alien is a horror film, and I think Aliens is an action film. And I think that they stand perfectly on their own. And that's why I love them both equally, like with all my heart. It's another one, like, don't go see the sequels. Like, there's no need. And not that like Aliens ends perfectly. Like, it definitely leaves it open for more. It's just that they're not as great and phenomenal as these ones. And I think James Cameron took it and went, okay, I like what you did here, but let's make it 10 times more extensive. Like, I think he was the example of being able to like, let's throw more money at it, because Alien is like super like not low budget, but it's pretty, I want to say like it's on the lower end of like where horror film, and it's truckers in space, and they're all like either B actors or Sigourney Weaver was never heard of at the time, that kind of thing. And I it's a great series, and I think that the horror film is wonderful and a joy, and because you get that like the scariness of the ship, and like something's chasing you around the ship and you're trying to get off the ship that's fighting you, like it's this great like man versus machine and man versus nature, and you get a lot of man versus man, like you get a lot of the dynamics, whereas Aliens is just a great action film. It goes, they're back, we fucked up, we need your help, let's go. Because basically how it happens is Aliens, she's like, they're bad aliens on this planet. Don't go to that planet. We need to nuke the planet, whatever. And they're like, we know there's nothing on the planet because we've had a colony there for like 10 years or whatever. And it's, what is it, 80 families or something like that.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they haven't heard from the colony anymore. And they need to send a military crew out, and they want Sigourney Weaver to come help as, a consultant per se. And it's got a great ensemble cast. They both have really great ensemble casts, but I think the sequel has the best ensemble cast. It kind of hurts me to say that a little bit. But like the sequel has Sigourney Weaver, Michael Biehn, which I didn't know that's how you said his name, Paul Reiser, Lance Henriksen, Bill Paxton. You got who was the other guy? Rico Ross. Like, it's just it's so beautiful. And it's just like a great like dynamic between like the crew and like the military. And it has I just think that the ensemble is better written. It has more depth in the sequel. In the original, you have like, the crew is a little bit more they're trucker, like they say, it's truckers in space is the tagline. So it's a little bit more dirty. They're a little bit more like against her, that they fight against the main character a lot more, whereas this one is like, we need to fight to survive, and this is how we make these decisions. And I actually think it's interesting, Sigourney Weaver's was nominated for Best Actress for this film, the sequel, and that's the first ever nomination for an action movie in the actress nominations, I guess. So like that was the first action movie to ever be nominated.
It's crazy because it feels like it's the last too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of an example now.
It also just is cleverly written. Like, it doesn't call back too much, but it also has the right amount of hints to the original. It feels like it doesn't need to reference the original. Like, that's the thing, is it doesn't treat the audience as stupid, which is always my like big hang up with sequels, is like when they're like, let's explain this. Like, when I think we talked about this in the last episode in the Saw ones, is like it treated the audience like they had never seen a Saw film before. And I'm like, well, obviously if I'm watching Saw 6, I've seen 5 through 1, hopefully. In my opinion, I don't know, maybe not, but like, I'm like, I don't need to see the same flashback sequence over and over and over again. And Aliens doesn't do that. It perfectly just assumes that you've seen it, and if you haven't, you're in for a ride. You're gonna not know anything about it. And Alien is the perfect movie to build on that, because they don't give you a whole hell of a lot. The whole thing is like, you really don't see the monster. It kind of is the Jaws effect. You see like the head, and see the scene where he's chest bursting, and like that's really it. And then in the sequel, they do this great callback scene where she has this like traumatic like dream nightmare where she has a chest burster come out, spoiler alert. And it's so traumatic to her because she thinks it's in her. And then it's like all a dream. And, she's like been on the space station or whatever. I just love Aliens so much. And I think it's clever, and it works really well, and I don't know what else to talk about, because I have an interesting tidbit about the knife trick scene in the sequel, which is like one of the most, like, I would say probably iconic scenes in the movie, the knife trick scene. It's with Lance Henriksen and Bill Paxton. So apparently, according to Lance Henriksen, he suggested to James Cameron to have Hudson's hand put on top of his, to which Cameron agreed, as Henriksen felt the scene needed something extra. The change was discussed with almost everyone except for Bill Paxton. Henriksen also remembers a long night of drinking after shooting the scene, followed by a reshoot of the scene, as it looked too fake when they sped the footage up. He actually caught Paxton's pinky with a knife in the reshoot. So, and that's like, I love Bill Paxton in that movie. I think I'm a big Bill Paxton fan. I love Twister. I love Twister, and I love his parts in Titanic. I think he brings such an like authentic experience to any film he's in, and I think he's great because he's the kind of like the reluctant soldier, in this film. He's always complaining, and he's super like nice guy on set. He was like, I'm sorry, I'm cursing and complaining so much, and they have a child actor in the second film. That's the other big thing, who carries the film on her own and doesn't say a word. Like she says probably a whole like 10 lines, I think, in the whole film. And so good. Have you guys seen Aliens? I could talk about it for hours.
Oh
I
yeah,
haven't.
definitely.
What?
You haven't, really?
No, I've seen Alien, but not Aliens.
Oh, wow.
You saw Alien for your thesis, didn't you?
Mhm.
Oh, I'm sad now.
Yeah.
Like,
Aliens
really
is,
sad.
It's excellent.
Because it's so good. Like, and you know how much I like Alien. Like,
Yeah.
how much I like Alien, and I love Aliens. Like, it's probably one of the only times I could say I like them the same amount. Because
that's how I feel about them.
because I feel like they're both just perfect in their own way.
Mhm.
And they don't have to like try to be this, like they just didn't feel like they tried hard, either of them. And I just I love it. So good. Sarah, it's on your bucket list, movie night. Let's go.
Okay. All right.
Oh, I'm so stressed now. But it's funny that James Cameron is on two of our lists. Ridley Scott's on two of our lists, actually, because Sarah, you have a Ridley Scott film or two for your next pick, right?
Yes. Well, I have a Ridley Scott film as the original.
Yeah.
But unfortunately he didn't come back for the sequel, but
Oh yeah, I forgot. It was
he still approves.
It's
Yeah.
What is it? Villeneuve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, if you listen to episode 1 of our wonderful podcast, I already mentioned Blade Runner is one of my top 5 movies of all time. And I feel so lucky that Blade Runner 2049 was freaking amazing, because it could have not been, especially making a sequel to a movie 35 years after it came out. So just in case, for a quick recap, if you haven't seen Blade Runner from 1982, directed by Ridley Scott, it follows Deckard, played by Harrison Ford, who's forced to continue his old job as a Blade Runner or replicant hunter. His assignment is to eliminate 4 escaped replicants from the colonies who have returned to Earth. And it's a beautiful movie. If you haven't seen it, it should definitely be on your bucket list. And it's based off of a short story by Philip K. Dick called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which has a fun little, nod in the sequel. But yeah, 35 years later, in 2017, Denis Villeneuve, he did Blade Runner 2049. It stars Ryan Gosling as the main character, which, like when you hear that, you're like, okay, pretty boy rom-com dude, whatever, but like he's amazing. Harrison Ford comes back, and he was very happy to, which is very weird for Mr. Grumpy Harrison Ford,
yes.
but he really wanted to. He loved this movie and was actually really sad wrapping 2049. It's got Dave Bautista,
iconic for him. Yeah. Sorry.
Robin Wright, Ana de Armas, who I just love. Jared Leto.
Honestly, all of them are great.
Davis, just all of them amazing. Yeah, it's fantastically cast, and I think for like a sequel to such an iconic movie done by a different director, done 3.5 decades later, like it blew my mind. I saw it in theaters, and I was taken by it. Like it's absolutely gorgeous, and I love the story. I feel like if you're not watching like the director's cut, but if you saw like the theatrical cut of Blade Runner, then like you might be left with like a lot of questions, like is Deckard a replicant? And like all of that is answered and more. Blade Runner 2049 has like an amazing twist in it. Like you're following Ryan Gosling's character Kay, and he's like convinced that he's Deckard's son, because the thing is that Deckard and Rachel were able to have like a child, and it's like replicants can have babies, WTF. And like you're following Ryan Gosling and you're like, wait, is this? And the twist is so amazing. I feel like everyone in this movie did such an amazing job. Like Jared Leto is so perfect for the Wallace Corporation, which is like what takes over after Terrell Corporation. And like he's just so weird and creepy and perfect.
He's great in those type of roles.
Yeah, Jared Leto is kind of perfect for that role. But someone else who probably also would have been perfect for that role was Villeneuve's first choice for Wallace was David Bowie, who died before production. But
yes,
my heart.
Just perfect. Oh man,
that would have been absolutely amazing.
I'm so sad now.
Jared Leto held it up.
You did good.
That's interesting. I would never put them on the same par.
Yeah.
It's interesting, huh?
I want that so badly now.
Same. That's one of those films that I never got into. I think I was just never like, when I sat down to watch it, I was busy or I just wasn't interested in watching it. And I'm sorry to say that because I'm pretty sure it was with Sarah, but I was probably drunk or drinking, and you know how you do sometimes. I don't know. And but I do know, like, after watching the sequel, that it worked. Like, we needed a sequel because it's just so beautiful to look at.
Yeah.
And it's just, it almost like heightens the experience of a Blade Runner film. And that's why I loved the sequel. Like, I agree with you. I think even though I'm not as big of a fan of the, series, I think it's still one of the most beautiful films to have come out in recent years. Just because I love the diegetic light, I guess is the right word I'm looking for. It's so natural and it feels so comfortable. Like, a lot of the times those like futuristic, like when you look at Star Wars and the futuristic cityscape that you get is like a lot, and it's almost uncomfortable because it is a lot. This feels like within our reach.
Yeah, like they're trying to lull you into all of this like tech, and like it's a little, it's like grungy and dark, just like the first one. Like it does follow that, and I feel like it complements it very well.
Yeah. I remember, like, that was my movie of the year that year. I was so mad when it didn't get nominated for Best Picture. I was just like, why?
It probably didn't, because it was a sequel. I really think it didn't get picked because it was a sequel.
It did win
sequel,
Best
and it was
Cinematography,
which it deserved, absolutely. Congratulations, Roger Deakins.
I was going to say Deakins, right?
And nominated for Best Sound Editing and Sound Mixing, and nominated for Best Production Design.
Who won for sound mixing that year?
I have no idea. It was I think it might have been. I'm thinking it might have been Dunkirk.
I was going to say, was that the year of Dunkirk?
Yeah, it might have been.
Also, because we were talking about Alien, unfortunately, the reason that Ridley Scott couldn't do Blade Runner 2049 was that he was otherwise engaged with Alien Covenant.
You fool. You absolute fool.
He was disappointed at that, but accepted it with grace, claiming, and I quote, "It was a bit of a bugger, but here we are."
Yeah,
I would be disappointed too.
So, I have controversial opinions because I liked Prometheus, and I didn't like Alien Covenant. So, like, I think it's hard to say that I liked Prometheus. I liked aspects of Prometheus. I think that's where I can say. I didn't think it needed to be told. I guess that's this reason, but I love the characters. That's really sad though about Ridley Scott, because I would have been really interesting to see him progress
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
director. But I honestly, like, when thinking of Ridley Scott, I don't think of Alien, I think of Blade Runner.
Oh yeah,
Like that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
like, sadly, I think James Cameron outshone Ridley Scott. And then there's nothing like against Ridley Scott. I think he did a perfect film. It's just that I think Blade Runner was a grander film and a better like
Mhm.
example of his, techniques and stuff like that. So
But they both have that grunginess though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's good at grunge.
Yeah. Another little fun thing is that if you've seen Blade Runner 2049, the opening scene is Kay has a standoff with a another replicant, and that's Dave Bautista. That scene was actually written for the first Blade Runner and was supposed to introduce Deckard, but it got
I didn't
scrapped.
know that.
And so they reshot it and then used it to introduce Kay for the sequel, which I thought was really cool.
That is
Interesting.
cool.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
I
it was
love
just
Dave
like
Bautista.
the isolated farm standoff, like that whole
Mhm.
bit was like part of the
Ah,
first movie that
man.
didn't make it. Yeah.
I just wonder what that would have looked like in the original film. Because
Mhm.
like I feel like the original film is so claustrophobic in a sense because it's this
Mhm.
big city but it's all
Yeah.
compacted. But the
Yeah.
second one is so wide. Like that would have
Yeah.
been so interesting. The
I-
one wide shot in the film.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
probably thought it didn't like work for
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe
it
for
wouldn't
that
have
reason.
fit.
All I really have to say is see it. See them both, because if any science fiction films should be on your bucket list, it should be Blade Runner and 2049.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with that one honestly as well. But Daryl, you have an interesting pick because this is a series I've not explored its sequels. I've only seen one of the films, so I'm looking forward to you telling me more about it. So, Daryl, what are your next favorite sequel?
Well, my next films. So, when I was trying to figure out what to do for this topic, it was really easy to pick lots of movies because I was just like, oh, I could do like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade or something like that, or I could do like Empire Strikes Back. But I was like, those are too easy because of course those are good movies. But I
Last
was
Crusade
like,
is so good. Oh my god.
it is. I honestly, it's like a perfect Indiana Jones movie. It's excellent. But I was like, I want to talk about something that was relatively recent for me that I had never seen, I had never been invested in before, and something that I just thought was like, this is interesting because it's just a much better sequel in general. It's not necessarily better than the original, but it's an awesome sequel, and that is Day of the Dead, by George A. Romero. So Day of the Dead came out in 1985. This is actually the third in the Night of the Living Dead series. There was Night of the Living Dead, which came out in 1968, and Dawn of the
so
Dead, which
good.
came out in 1978. Now, the thing about these movies is that the story is unlike pretty much all the movies we've talked about so far, and even like our last one we're going to talk about. It's not a story that is continuous. It doesn't have none of the movies have characters that reprise their roles. I think except the last two movies, but those aren't good movies. Um, in this 6 movie series, only watch the first 4, so they're fine. But yeah, it's not about recurring characters because it's all about people just surviving in this new zombie world. It's kind of like how with The Walking Dead and its like spin-off series, it's just more of that. That's what Day of the Dead is. It's just more of that in a different setting. So Night of the Living Dead was basically about just a group of people who are kind of trapped in a house while a zombie outbreak happens.
So good. Please
Yeah,
see
it's yeah, like you have to see that because it's an amazing film. It's like the first big zombie movie. It's where the term zombie really entered popular culture. Its sequel, Dawn of the Dead, was much bigger. It took place in a mall basically, and it was like 3 people trying to survive the zombie outbreak in a mall. So you can see there's a recurring theme of just people surviving the zombie outbreak in whatever location they're in. But they always work. I think Night of the Living Dead is great. Everyone loves Dawn of the Dead. I think it's a little boring at times, but it gets really good. Um, but my favorite of all of them, I think, just in terms of sheer enjoyment, is Day of the Dead. So I'll give you the actual summary from IMDb for this one. As the world is overrun by zombies, a small group of scientists and military personnel dwelling in an underground bunker in Florida must determine whether they should educate, eliminate, or escape the undead horde. So, educate, eliminate, or escape. Like, when I came into this movie, I was only watching it because I had just picked up Dawn of the Dead, and I was like, "Oh, that was good. I'd like to see the next one." I guess I had no idea what was in store for me. So, first of all, when the movie opens, there's a piece of music that, if you're a fan of the band Gorillaz, you'll recognize the "Hello, is anyone out there?" from the track M1A1. That's where that comes from. It comes from this
Ah,
movie.
Ah,
I didn't know
I
that.
didn't I didn't know that until I watched. I was like, "Oh my god, I know that. I've heard this before."
that's awesome.
So, random trivia that's not important to the story, but I just thought was really cool because it opens the movie. Um, so basically, it's just about like these scientists and military people who are just trapped in the bunker, and they're like, "Well, what do we do about the zombies?" Um, because there's this scientist who's saying like, "Well, what we could do is we could teach them to not eat people." And it basically follows one of the doctors who's just like, "Look, I'm just trying to survive here. I'm just trying to get through this." As the military personnel are like going crazy because they're like their people are getting killed and they have to keep capturing zombies to bring back this guy who, of course, he's named Dr. Frankenstein
Of
in the
course.
movie. Um and they have to so they have to bring these zombies to this guy so he can like work on them and try and get them to, be tame. And it's like it's super it's funny in a way because the way George Romero made it, I don't think he was intending for it to be funny, but it's just so enjoyable because it's so violent, it's so gruesome. It has like some of the best practical effects just ever. It has so many awesome individual zombies, and there's actually like a main zombie in the film whose name is his name is Bub. um he's the zombie that our doctor is trying to, one of the doctors is trying to teach, and he actually does start to kind of learn. He starts to remember like what it was like to be human. So it's like he'll give him like a tape recorder and he'll put the headphones on and be like, like he'll recognize music, or he'll give him like a book or something and he'll open up the book as if he's trying to read it. Or the most important parts in the movie where like he gives him like an unloaded gun and he takes the gun and he like is like he cocks it and you're just like, oh my god, this is this is really dangerous. But it is like it's such an awesome, entertaining, enjoyable movie. The villains and some of the military guys, they are like just the worst people. You hate them so much, and you know for a fact that they are gonna die in such a gruesome way that you're just excited the whole time. You're like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens to you. I can't wait. Like you get people whose faces get like ripped off. You get like jaws just like yanked off and stuff like that. Just people getting their guts torn out of their bodies, being torn in half. It's just a bloody, gruesome, good time. The cast is like they're not people I'd really ever heard of. You have like Laurie Cardile as Dr. Sarah Brown, who's like our protagonist, which is interesting because this was from 1985, so it was a few years after Alien, and just like I guess 1 year before Aliens. So it was kind of like, oh, we have a female protagonist. This
Yeah.
is interesting in like a horror film. Who she doesn't die at the end. It's
Hmm.
she actually like she survives. She's the only girl in the movie. She's the only female in it entirely. Everyone else is
Hmm.
men. Um, and basically it's kind of like she's the reason why she and her friends end up surviving. um Other notable cast members are Terry Alexander as John Flyboy, who is a Caribbean pilot who does not have an actual Caribbean accent. If you'd heard Taylor Alexander's voice, like, you are not Caribbean, you have an awful accent. Um, However, he has like an excellent monologue. It is so good. It's one of those random things. I was not expecting to hear an incredible monologue in this movie. They're not exactly known for their great dialogue, you know. Um, and I realized watching this, I was like, I think George Romero just loves black people.
Oh my God, yes.
He just loves them because the black people are always the best character
Mhm.
in like at least the first four films. They're either the main character or they're the best character.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, this guy was George Romero was great. He died in 2017, unfortunately, but George Romero was just a wonderful person. If you ever like listen to him in interviews, or listen to people talk about him, he's just like the nicest guy. Um, like in one of his in the next film, Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright actually have a cameo because they're big Dawn of the Dead fans, and they get to show up in one of his movies. And just watching them, I'm watching Sarah. She's just
I
like,
didn't
my
know
heart.
that.
Yeah, they,
I
they show up. They show up
I
as
love
zombies.
that. Oh my
Like,
God.
the reverence they had for that man, like, it's so nice to watch. I loved it. That was just wonderful to watch that little special feature in the next movie. But back to this movie. It also stars Greg Nicotero, of The Walking Dead fame.
Huh.
So yeah, this was like his first like big makeup VFX role. He also played a character in the movie who dies. But at the time he was Tom Savini's assistant, and back then Tom Savini was like the Greg Nicotero of nowadays, of like back then. So he was the
Hmm.
big like zombie VFX guy back in the
Mhm.
80s. He was really interesting. But yeah, this is one of those films that has an awesome cast of just people who either play crazy characters or awful characters, and you either love them or you hate them. But either way, when they die, you're just gonna be like, that was a good death. Not physically, it was probably really painful, but they're always really interesting. And I think I like this one the most out of all three because I find it like it's less serious and more campy. Even though I know Romero disagrees with me on that. He thinks that the previous one was more campy, but I was like, I don't know. You have a zombie holding a gun and reading a book. I find that a little campier. But overall, I just think that it's just an excellent movie. Um, I would say put the first three on your bucket list, please. Just watch Day of the Dead over and over again. It's so fun. It takes place in a mine. They're in a mine the whole time, so they're just like it's just dark and they're going crazy the whole time. And so, yeah. But yeah, I don't know, because Grace, you said you've only seen the first one, right?
I've seen Night of the Living Dead. I love
Okay,
Night
yeah.
of the Living Dead. It's one of my
I haven't seen
favorite.
any of them.
I like I would say Night of the Living Dead's an interesting one because it has a lot of like um undertones of like certain things, like he kind of hints on things.
Hmm.
Also is just like one of the greatest lines ever written was Night of the Living Dead. They're coming to get you, Barbara. Like that's one of the best moments of cinema history ever. So yeah. Uh I mean I know that one's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I highly recommend them just because they're really fun to watch. The sequel films aren't quite as good, but even the fourth one is fun. It has John Leguizamo in it, being John Leguizamo. So if that does anything for you, there you go. But overall, these films are cool because there's like an evolution of the zombies in each movie, and I
Mhm.
just think that that's really cool. That's something you don't get in zombie fiction. It's typically just zombies are zombies and they're crazy and they want to kill everybody. So
Yeah.
yeah, they're very well. Their first few are very well made movies. So yeah, like in terms of zombie films in general, I would say that really the first three Night of the Living Dead movies are all just wonderful movies to watch. They're great. If you like zombie stuff, you're gonna love them because they look great. They're really fun. They have awesome gore, and Day of the Dead to me is like the best out of all of them. So
It's also historical. You need to at least see the first three because
Oh yeah.
I mean, Night of the Living Dead gives you your first modern zombie. So before that, you really only have like Frankenstein and, the Bride of Frankenstein. You don't really have this like droning kind of, like, you have variations of a zombie, but not something that we would classify as zombie. Like now we have all sorts of, like, we have these like scary ones from I Am Legend. We have, 28 Days Later. We have so many options and different films that now it almost seems like hack what Night of the Living Dead is. But like you have to realize, like, that's where it all started, was, with
George Romero.
this tiny like country farmhouse, and this like pathetic white lady and this badass black dude who like literally like has the most traumatic ending of all time. It's so sad. And I just think it's a great series, and I'm actually really upset with myself that I haven't seen anymore, because I love Night of the Living Dead. I've seen parts of Dawn of the Dead, but I haven't seen the whole thing.
Wasn't there a really bad remake of that?
Yes.
Zack Snyder did do a Dawn of the Dead. It's not, honestly, it's not that bad. It's just different.
Okay.
And
But it's all right.
Yeah, it's kind of, he just
I feel
released
like
a
I
new
remember there
zombie movie.
being a zombie baby in it, and that was
There is a zombie baby.
Yes.
It's
that was where it went from like, all right, to like,
to like,
I
what
don't
is
know
happening?
about this.
Yeah. He
But
loves
like,
zombie
what
babies
would it
for some
look
reason.
like, a zombie baby? I think it's an interesting concept.
It's like, that's what the people want.
They want to know. But now that leads me into some of the greatest films of all time. It's one of my favorite sequels.
Creme de la creme.
The creme de la creme, the cream of the crop. Shrek 2.
All hail
she's
Shrek
not
2.
joking.
I'm not joking. I think Shrek 2 is probably the greatest sequel of all time.
Better than Aliens?
Oh, yes. I will lead into it and say yes. So for those of you who haven't seen Shrek, which
somehow
I found out my husband doesn't like Shrek, and it almost caused for divorce.
I do love Shrek. I'm not bashing Shrek. Shrek's a great movie. Shrek has a very special place in my heart. And Shrek is actually like the first movie that I remember my grandma loving so much that she
Such a good
stole
film.
my VHS tape and kept
I love it. I love it. No, so if you haven't seen it, it's about a mean lord exiles fairy tale creatures to the swamp of a grumpy ogre who must go on a quest and rescue a princess for the lord in order to get his land back. And it kind of silliness ensues, and it's great because it exists in a world where all the fairy tales that we know and love exist, but they're kind of crass, they're kind of crude, they're almost like, what would the gingerbread man really be like, or the wolf that ate the granny would be really into trash TV, like that kind
it's
of
like
thing.
If someone took Disney and turned it into a fart joke.
Yes,
really, really
that's
funny
exactly
fart joke.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because like Shrek was supposed to be the crappy movie of the year. They used Shrek as if you pissed off someone at DreamWorks, you'd go work on Shrek. I think that's a really interesting idea of how it worked in animation back in the early 2000s. So Shrek came out in 2001, and then the sequel came out in 2004. So not a really long turnaround for that one. Shrek 2 is, so I guess spoiler alert if you haven't seen Shrek, but Shrek ends up with the princess who is an ogre as well. You find out drama, but they get married at the end, and it's a great scene, and there's I believe, and it's got a great ending and a marriage scene and donkey singing, and you know, Eddie Murphy is phenomenal. But the sequel starts with Shrek and Fiona travel to the kingdom of Far, Far Away, which is where she's from. She's from Far, Far Away, where Fiona's parents are king and queen. To celebrate their marriage, they want to, like, you know, invite Shrek to, you know, be a part of the family and give them the blessing. They don't realize that Shrek is an ogre, and that when breaking the spell, they actually just turned Fiona into an ogre instead of her human form, I guess is the way to say it. But when they arrive, they're not as welcome as though they thought they would be. And it's just, this is a film that I just think builds on lore in such a beautiful way because it has so much to work with. And I think I love the dialogue of I like all the dialogue of all the fresh Shrek films, but to me, Shrek 2 is better than the first one. I think the plot is 10 times better. I love it introduces characters that have purpose. Like they all feel like they have a reason to exist in their world. And they have Puss in Boots, which is Antonio Banderas, and it's literally the greatest like animation ever is watching him have a hairball, because it looks just like a cat having a hairball, and especially because it looks like Sarah's cat having a hairball, Cooper, because his hair like stands up on the end. I was gonna say, Sarah, do you have Cooper there?
No.
Cooper.
He was around.
But he looks just like Puss in Boots, and to me, it's a film that has references, and like they reference OJ Simpson in the film, and it's something that I had picked up on originally and then read the trivia and went, I was right, and I'm so excited I was right. That was a reference. And you know, it has great music. It has some of the best animated soundtrack that I think I've ever heard. It has a great cover of I Need a Hero.
Way better than the original.
Way better than the original. And it's with the fairy godmother, and there's Prince Charming, and like they go to McDonald's, and there's like these great just like little references that I love about animated films, and I love that they can do it in animated films. And she's like, I'm ruining my diet. Let me have a double cheeseburger and a little kid meal for Charming. And Charming's like, you know, and 27-year-old man, you know,
basically being held hostage
by his mother, you know. And it's got a great cast. It's got, you know, I mean, obviously Mike Myers, Cameron Diaz, Eddie Murphy, all reprising their roles. Julie Andrews, Antonio Banderas, I believe John Cleese, Jennifer Saunders is the fairy godmother. It's just so they have this whole police montage where Shrek's like riding into the kingdom in like a white horse, and the cops are chasing him, which are actually just the knights of the kingdom. And they have like a camera sequence, and they're like, they pull up catnip from Puss in Boots, and they're like, I don't know where that came from. And it's just these great moments. And I mean, the OJ Simpson reference where he's riding in on the white horse, which is a white reference to the white Ford Bronco that OJ Simpson was running away from the cops on. And they also like have these, like, they reference Godzilla with a giant gingerbread man, and they use Godzilla's scream in the movie, which I thought was interesting, because I was like, wow, that really sounds like Godzilla. They reference, you know, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom. They, you know, they have some great moments of like, just like animation is just like on point. Like it and it also is just like one of those films where you're watching it and you feel good inside.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
makes it, because like he has to like change, he wants to change himself. It doesn't feel like he has to, it's the character wants to change himself for her to make her feel better, like to be what he thinks she needs. And it's almost like it feels like it's not one of those like, oh, he has to do this kind of thing to do this and this. It's almost like you fall in love with the characters more, and it feels very relatable, I guess, in a way. Like it feels very like connecting. um and they have an ET reference with the gingerbread man and his little friend is like, be good. It's so sad. But the animation is interesting. The computer animation program that they created for Puss in Boots Fur has to be some of the original stuff that we got now. Like, I mean, you have to think about like what we got from that program probably led to Elsa's hair eventually. At some point, like that program probably was, adjusted and adjusted and adjusted, and then you get Elsa, that kind of thing. I don't know. Sarah, have you seen Shrek 2?
Yes, but it was a really long time ago. I think
I'm
I only
very
saw it
upset right now.
once.
I'm very upset right now. We have to have a movie night. Like, because I just think it's a fun film. It's just, even like, I know Shrek 3 the third, whatever, didn't do very well, and it's not good by any chance. But it still has great references. Like Fiona's going to like a party with all the princesses, and like they all have like these really terrible mannerisms, and like like all Snow White wants to do is clean with all her little helpers, and Sleeping Beauty's like asleep like a drunk on the side. It they just take Disney, you're right, and like, let's make it a joke. Let's make it a fart joke. Like that's a great explanation of it, because
that should be the tagline.
Yeah, like let's
Shrek,
take Disney.
really Disney, but a really funny fart joke.
Yeah. So it's one of those films like I just rewatched recently, and I was like, this is so good. And I found out my husband didn't like it, and I was like, how could you not like these films? Like, to me, they're like the perfect amount of crass and fun, and they're a great story. Like, I mean, give me a talking donkey any day.
My like favorite scene in I think the first movie is when they like go to see Lord Farquaad, and it's like the
Disney World thing.
Yeah, it's basically Disney World, and there's like the little puppets. It's like a small world.
Oh yeah. Oh, that scene. I love that. It's a small world. I thought you were talking about the montage fight sequence with Bad Reputation.
That's also amazing.
Oh yes, that one. I love that.
I love the little puppet entrance. It's a small world thing.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
So funny.
But it's also one of those like it's become more quotable over time, and like, I mean, like I can say things like, ogres are like onions. They have layers.
Do you know the Muffin Man?
The first one's so quotable, and then you get the second one, which is not as quotable, I would say, and like doesn't have as much I guess memeable moments. It's just perfectly written, like, because it does have those quotes. There are just so many of them, perfectly timed and perfectly done. Like they have like one where they're like, oh, is the fairy godmother in? And he's like, no, she's not in right now, but I can like take a message. And then she calls and she's like, I need my like puff tacos or whatever, like that kind of thing. And and then they have this whole moment about like how they're the health and safety inspectors or something, and he like rats her out and says they don't even get paid overtime or something like that. Like it's just like these like great like little quips that I think are just, I don't know, the writers on that one killed it, and I think that's why I love that one so much, is because it crams a lot into a little animated movie. So, but Dara, what do you think about it?
Oh, I think it's like, I mean, it's the perfect sequel. It is. Shrek 2. Shrek 2 is a weird movie for me, only because like I have very specific memories of like watching that on like random Friday nights. It'll be on TV, and so like me and my whole family are watching it just because it happens to be on. I remember being a big fan of Shrek 2, like listening to I Need a Hero over and over again because it's so good. It's such a good scene. Everything about that moment is so good. It has an awesome third act. I love the third act of that movie so much. Like
You're
it
right. It
is.
is a 3-act structure because it has like the beginning where
Mhm.
it's like he meets the parents, then the second part's like getting to fix the problem, and then it's refixing the problem
Yeah,
that he's
refixing the
caused.
problem.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's got great sequences of just like it has a lot of great like montage scenes, I think, in that one. It
Mhm.
has a great opening scene where they're like on their honeymoon, and there's this moment where they're like making out on the beach and a wave washes over them, and he's making out with like Little Mermaid or whatever, Ariel,
I
and
remember
like
that.
Fiona takes the fish and just throws her back into the sea. It's got like it's just so I guess the right word is charming. Like it's a film that I
Yeah.
find because it is they make fart jokes and they make burp jokes and there's that kind of thing which is sadly my humor. So, but it also is like warm and fuzzy, I guess, and
Yeah, it
clever.
has a lot of heart to it.
Yes, yes, heart. It has a lot of heart as a sequel, and I
A
think
lot of
that
heart and a lot of fart.
a lot of there you
A lot
go.
of heart. That's the other tagline.
That's
A
the
lot of heart, a lot
tagline.
of fart.
But I think that's all we have really for today on sequels. I know we could probably tackle a lot more, not cackle.
I could
Cackling is
cackle.
different. Yeah.
Watching Shrek too, yeah.
Yeah, you could
Yeah.
cackle. But that's probably like our first run at sequels because like I know I didn't even cover one of my like most recent ones that I really loved. Um, being a Stephen King one.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I didn't
Okay.
even
Yeah.
cover it, but like I was like I wanted to talk about these two because these are like the first ones that I really think about when I think about sequels. But I did want to give a shout out to the podcast, the Uncredited Extras podcast. I think I said that right. They are a wonderfully kind podcast that gave us a shout out, so we wanted to give them one in return. We are totally enjoying you guys' episodes and we're looking forward to hearing more from you guys. But my name is Gracie, and you can find me at Gracie May with a Y and 3 E's anywhere you see fit. That's pretty much Instagram, Twitter. I don't know what the other one, TikTok, if you want to go on. I don't post on TikTok, but you could follow me on TikTok if you want to. But I know, Daryl, you are only available on one website. And what website is that?
That is Twitter, because that's the only place where I actually ever post. I posted this week, actually,
Yes,
if you'd
you
like to
did.
see that. Yes, thank you for the clapping. Yes, that you can find me at Darth Daryl. That's Darth as in Vader, Maul, Sidious, take your pick, and Daryl, Darrell. Yeah, I don't post there a whole lot, but sometimes I post random thoughts about
I would
people
think
and
it's worth it to
things.
follow you on Letterbox. Actually, follow all of
Oh
us on
yeah, follow me on
Letterbox.
Letterbox too. That's true because it's the same account, Darth Daryl. So yeah,
Yeah.
become friends with us there, I guess.
What about you, Sarah?
I'm at snotty_person on Twitter and at snotty.person on Instagram. Both of those are snotty with an IE instead of a Y. And I know it's kind of hard to find people on Letterbox through the app. So if you follow us on YouTube, all of the links for our Letterbox are in the description.
Yes. So check us out for the latest movie news at the Popcorn Bucket List on Instagram or at TPB_podcast on Twitter, or just find us on social media. Please just like look us up. Well, that's all you have to do. And tune in to our YouTube channel if you want to see our beautiful faces and expressions. And, I got new lighting. Woo. Finally, some actual like set to this. But yeah, we upload our video version of the podcast on the Fridays after we upload our audio versions. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys next week and hope you guys have a beautiful start to your summer session, I guess. I don't really know. If you're in school, you're in school. If you're not in school, then I'm sorry.
I'm sorry
What is
if you
school?
are.
What is reality?
What is reality? What a great end. Have a great week, guys. And I look forward to seeing y'all and your beautiful faces next week. Mwah.
Goodbye.
Bye.